Okay, I'd like to call the November meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Sharita, would you call the roll, please?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Suzanne Broadbent.
Present.
Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Nila Crank-Killamit.
Present.
Greg Eddington. George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Ann Zacharit.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd first like to go over the meeting process, which is on the back of the first page of the agenda. The chairman will announce each case and ask interested parties to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will discuss details of the case, calling on staff for details. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of parties present. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address. If you would sign in, please, are asked to present their position as succinctly as possible. The commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the commission determines that circumstances have changed. And 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. When an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. And then finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Okay, and if you would, silence your cell phones, including the commission. And with that, we will get started with, from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer.
We have a realtor workshop coming up. This is a training that we've partnered with Oakmar to provide for realtors. They get continuing ed credits to learn about what it means to own a home in a historic preservation district, and that'll be on November 9th, next week. And then coming up in December is a workshop for all of our design review commissions and committees, Arts Commission, Planning Commission, et cetera, that you all should be getting more information about soon.
Okay. Thank you. Item 3, acceptance of minutes of the previous meeting. Any discussions or comments on the minutes or a motion?
Well, yes, under item 2, the wood window workshop was in October rather than November. Am I correct on that? There's not another one, is there, Katie, that you were reporting on?
Yep, that's correct. And we'll, if it was listed that way on the agenda for the October meeting, then we'll make a note to reflect that that's an error.
Okay. And then on, it's page 15 of the minutes. Under specific item, findings for item 9 under, let me find the HPCA 1600-140. I seem to recall that we had also required non-reflective glass. Is that something we need to add to the minutes, or am I correct on that? Or?
What we can do is we will listen back to the tape from the meeting, and we can amend the minutes if necessary to reflect that.
Okay. It's important to us, I think, to our neighborhood. Okay.
Yeah.
Any more comments on the minutes? So I'd like to make a motion with those changes. For approval?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Nila Crank-Clements and second by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted. To the code enforcement report. Is anybody here to talk about that? Okay. Any comments on that? Don't need to approve that, so I guess we'll move on.
Yeah, as we've been trying to note, if you look through this where you see citation number, if there is actually a number, then that means they've progressed from a notice of violation to an actual citation. You can go on the city's website and put that number in to look up the status of that case and find out more information, or reference that number in a call or an email to code enforcement or to our staff. And if anyone has questions about anything on that report, we're happy to find out more.
Okay, thanks, Katie. All right, I guess we'll go on to item 5, continuance announcements and requests.
We had one request for a continuance, HPCA 16-00145, but my understanding is that the applicant was present and wanted to make a comment.
Christopher Gilchrist, I'm a resident of 531 Northwest 36 Terrace.
I just want to say before you start that we're not considering this today, we're just making comments on it. It's not up for consideration today.
I was here just to answer any more questions regarding the information.
Just want to make sure it's clear to everybody. Any comments?
I believe at the previous meeting there were some questions about the shape of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
It's an unusual shape and was retaining that shape but being widened. I believe the applicant had emailed with staff about possibly just making it a straight driveway that was the same width as the garage door opening, but at the previous meeting it was continued because no one was present to answer some of those concerns.
Okay, so I can answer those. So the original consideration was to keep it the same way it was. If the commission would like it to be straight, I would be happy to update the plans accordingly. Within our street, there are 2 other houses that have attached 2-car garages, and their driveways are straight, not the bottleneck design or unique design that it has. So if it would please the commission, I can update that to where it's a straight from the house to the approach rather than the unique design that we currently have.
I understand this was talked about briefly at last month's meeting. I wasn't there here, so.
And the sketch that you had put forth on your site plan, it looked as though part of the driveway you had proposed actually swinging wider than the garage and then narrowing down to a wider hourglass. Is that what your original proposal was?
So the original proposal was to extend the driveway to the end of the house on the west side. Mm-hmm. And how we originally had it, the radius that goes actually to the street would actually end up being a little wider than the edge of the house. The revised was to expand not just the radius on the west side, but also the east side, so it would, because we're awkwardly shaped on the street.
Right.
So if we were to extend the east side, we wouldn't have that wraparound that goes, or the radius wouldn't extend past the house.
We'll need to see the plan.
And alternatively, you've proposed just coming straight out from the edges of the garage.
If that would be easier, yes.
Okay. Right.
You need to sign in also, I was reminded
Mm-hmm.
by our legal counsel. Any more
I think
comments?
I'm just not clear. I mean, Mr. Gilchrist has requested a continuance, but we're still talking about the case?
We can make comments because he's requested comments, but we're not considering it.
I think,
for
did we
decision.
give comments last time, or did we just continue it? I felt like we talked
There were
about this
some
at
comments I
length.
heard.
We did discuss it a little bit. The applicant was not present, and the staff person who had worked with the applicant was not present. So we felt like the back and forth that did happen in the previous meeting was probably not as helpful as it typically is when we've discussed a case before. So because they wanted to be here, and because they've also said they do not believe they'll be able to be here in the
Right.
December meeting, we
Little
wanted
unique.
to let them at least make a comment.
Right.
Is there a proposal that they could bring to staff that staff could approve?
Because it widens beyond 10 feet, staff can't administratively approve it. We can only administratively approve widening a driveway up to 10 feet. But I think if they make some of the changes that we've discussed, we can put it on, perhaps even put it on the consent docket for the next time.
How old is this current driveway? Do you have any
I
idea?
do not know. The house was built in 1940.
And you've had it how long?
We've been a resident there for 7.5 years. It was a rental house prior, so I don't know what updates were.
So if you made it straight, how wide would the driveway be?
That would be,
It would be wider than 10 feet.
yes. Now, there are the two houses that I was referring to regarding the two-car garage attached. Those are wider than 10 feet as well. So we would just match the ones that are previously on the street.
But basically the same width as the doors or the,
So the two houses that I referenced, one goes to the end of the house and the other is just the doors. And we're fine with either.
Mr. Gilchrist, I wasn't clear on why the portion closest to the street, I think it's 8 feet wide now, staff report notes, you want to expand it to 13 feet. Why is that?
So in that was to extend all the way to the end of the house. And we would just make it equal to that. So it's there's no design. It's just straight from the road to the actual house itself.
Okay, so when you're looking at the house, we have a Google Street View picture on page 404 of the staff report. There's a white Jeep in the drive. Are you saying the right side of the driveway would expand 5 feet to be even to the house between the garage?
So the original submission was just to extend everything to the left or the west side, and that would cause it to look very awkward from a street appeal standpoint as the radius would extend far out of the end of the house. So instead of just pushing it all the way to the left, we would take the radius equal on both sides and expand proportionally on both edges of the driveway.
I think my comments last time were just that I didn't see where in the guidelines we could expand it to 13 feet, and I didn't see a special or unique circumstance that would allow us to do that.
Well, I would think that the 10 feet is because the majority are single-car garage entrances. Is that?
So we are allowed to administratively approve widening a driveway that is less than 10 feet, up to 10 feet at the staff level. That's because we have lots of, one-car historic driveways that were 7 feet, 8 feet wide, and so widening up to 10 for one of those is allowed by staff. I think we have, the commission has approved widening other driveways well beyond 10 feet when the driveway was already beyond that proportion and when it made sense for the design of the house, the era of the house. When there's an attached two-car garage close to the street, I think it's not unusual for us to see a driveway that matches the width of the garage.
Right. But there's not a guideline that says that the width of the driveway is limited.
No, other than the 10-foot one, there's not a limitation on the width. We do have language that talks about preserving the...
Is the 10 feet just for staff?
Right. Yep.
So there's really not a limitation on the width of the driveway. So, we have a lot of driveways that match the width of a two-car garage. So, anyway, I don't think that, I would suggest that you bring back documentation to your liking, which sounds like that you would prefer a straight driveway, the width of either the door or the house.
I think that's more accurate to what's on our street already, so I can do that, absolutely.
okay?
All right, thank you.
Help you? Good, thank you. Oh, we need to make a motion on the continuance requests, just one.
To December. I move to continue HPCA 16-00145 to the December 7th meeting.
Second.
Moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Ann Zakowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, continuance is approved. Public hearings? None. B, National Register nominations? None. So on to consent docket. Any comments, or would anybody like to pull one of those? Or make a motion to approve the consent docket?
I move to approve all items on the consent docket.
Second.
Who was that? Suzanne? Moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, the consent docket is approved. On to D, cases for individual consideration. Katie?
HPCA 16-00105 at 3200 North Walker, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Oklahoma City Public Schools Board of Education by Jack Joyner of JHBR Architecture for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct safe room gymnasium with covered walkway, elective. This application, they have been working closely with the neighborhood on revising the design from what was initially presented to the commission. They're out of continuances at this time and hadn't gotten those revisions submitted to us. They have actually already reapplied, knowing that the commission would have to go ahead and deny the proposal this time. So I'm not sure if anyone's present. But
I need to abstain on this one, so Jeff, if you would take over.
I think since we've not received revised documentation, it's out of continuances, and they've reapplied, then I would move to deny HPCA 16-00105 without prejudice.
Second.
It's been moved by Neela Crank-Clements, second by Ann Zacharitz. Before we vote, was there anyone here in the audience that wished to address this item on the agenda? Just want to make sure we didn't miss you. Okay. We have a motion from Neela, a second from Ann. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that item is denied without prejudice.
Before we go on to the next one, I meant to say, if you were on the consent docket, then you are approved and you're free to go, unless you just want to stay for the afternoon. If you were on that first part of the agenda, then you're approved and you'll be getting confirmation of that in the mail from staff. Number 2, HPCA 16-00110 at 807 Northwest 24th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Tai Minhu by Tammy Tai for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace driveway required, and 2, install carport required. You do have one additional piece of documentation at your seats that's an aerial photo marked to indicate where the paving has been installed at this property, and including the portion that's been removed since the last time this case was reviewed.
Okay, is the applicant present?
Okay, I have a question. It's kind of unclear. Page 5 of the staff report shows a photograph. I don't know if we have this available for everyone to see. This is the portion that runs parallel to the street that butts up against the front porch on the east side. In the aerial that you've provided, it would seem that that portion has been removed, but this picture shows it, so I'm unclear.
So this picture was submitted when they initially applied.
Okay.
That's the work that had been completed for which they did not have a CA. Since that first meeting, the applicant has removed the carport, and they also removed that portion of concrete by the porch, leaving the walkway from the front steps to the driveway. The commission had actually asked them to just provide a revised site plan, but they went ahead and removed that portion of concrete that I think they felt like that was pretty widely accepted as, one of the steps that they needed to take. So they did remove the carport and that portion of paving. This aerial photo did seem to support that there had been a sidewalk going from the front steps across to the driveway, and then obviously back along the side of the house. There doesn't appear to have been much left of a driveway, so it's difficult to know where there was paving and where there wasn't.
So that large bit of paving there underneath the yard hose has been removed?
Yes.
Except for a portion that would be considered a sidewalk to the driveway?
Yes.
For our records, I think we would need to know how wide the portion of sidewalk they left.
Yeah, I've asked for dimensions on the remaining paving, and they haven't gotten that to us yet.
I'm not sure we
site
could
plan.
approve it. What was your recommendation to approve it? I think we would need to have those dimensions before we would approve something.
Can we continue it
Do you
again?
think?
Yeah, I think with the applicant not present, I think we can continue it another time. And if the width of the driveway is within that 10-foot limit, then it's something that we could administratively approve based
Yes.
on what we
Yes.
have.
But
I
they
think we
did-
just need to know what that sidewalk width is.
But they did leave the concrete
3 feet or 10?
from the side, from the driveway over to the house, next to the house, correct?
Yes.
Personally, I wish they'd reduce some of that concrete up against the house with a planting area, like the front, but I guess we can talk about that next month.
I think we did ask that
Made
be
comments.
removed, so I think we're not quite ready
I don't either.
to approve this one.
So, you make a motion, Neela?
I would move to continue HPCA 16-00110 to the December 7th meeting?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Neela Frank Clements and seconded by Heather Clemmer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this case is continued to December. Next.
HPCA 16-00139 at 419 Northwest 19th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Christina and Mark Julik by Zeb Gutro for certificate of appropriateness to 11, replace front porch columns and rails, elective.
I need to abstain on this.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Yes. Would you sign in, please, sir? All right, any comments on this?
I guess you have pictures of what I'm proposing, what the columns used to look like.
Could you announce your name?
Sorry, Zeb Gotro, 419 Northwest 19th Street.
Okay, thank you. This is on with the pictures.
You are proposing just to put those back like they were.
Exactly like they were.
I think what is lacking is perhaps the final documentation of the exact columns. Is that what you're looking for?
I believe the applicant had proposed to put the brick column that you see in all of the locations.
Yep.
But staff felt like from the historic photos that were submitted, the column that you see
Right.
to the left of the bride appears to show a different column that would have been in the center of the porch. And we didn't think it seemed very likely that they would have gone through multiple phases of column replacement with different columns at different times.
okay.
We felt like that was perhaps the historic condition.
What was your idea on the one that's showing the column, the round wood columns on top of the brick pedestal?
What was your question?
What were your thoughts?
Oh, so I actually bought this house from the people that owned it when those were removed. And he says that they were done in two different phases. The carport came later. They initially did it to open up the patio, he said, because it felt too closed off with the columns, in their opinion. And so that was the reason that that is like that.
So the owner said there were brick columns all across,
That's correct.
and also they took out that low brick wall.
That's right.
Right.
And I've also seen a few more houses in the neighborhood just on a block over that are very similar to this house, probably the same builder, that still have those existing columns. They don't all have the cutout, but they do have columns all the way across very often.
Be nice to see a
So, but the column configuration in the wedding photos, even though it's the pair of columns, is different than the pair of columns that exists today, is that right?
That's correct.
Because it's got a higher pedestal and the
brick wall.
wall that engages into it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So what's existing today is really the third generation. There's the original generation that the owner's telling you looks like the one to the right on the bottom picture.
I believe that's right.
And then he's saying that at one time it got shortened. The one that we see with the columns got shortened and the columns put there. And then,
sounds like there were three phases.
right, and then the current. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. Then the third, I'm sorry, the original, the middle, and then the last. Now this will be the fourth going back to the first. Is that correct?
That's what.
Supposedly, yeah.
That's how I understand it.
I mean, I would move to approve if you could maybe give supporting photographs to staff on other houses in the neighborhood with similar columns to be added to the documentation.
They show the brick columns all
They
across.
show brick columns on other houses,
All the way across.
all the way across.
Yeah.
Katie, would that?
Well, my only question for that is if they can't, or if
He just said
that's
they
kind of
had to work.
Oh,
maybe a tricky judgment call for
Oh, I
staff to
see.
make if he gives us photos that we still feel like don't support it. In looking at the photo that does show clearly two different columns there at the same time, we felt like, one, how likely would it have been that they would have, in that time period, have taken those out and put in the wood ones that you see, which look pretty historic. We also felt like it's not unusual to see a front porch where the column by the steps in the center is different from the ones on either side.
I understand that, but he's saying that the owner, could you get a written confirmation from the owner?
I could attempt to do that, yes.
I think that might help. I think we're inclined to trust an actual photograph more than
Right.
a recollection. So maybe some additional support
And
verifying
try
that
one
would
more
be
time
helpful.
for either additional information from the owner and/or photographs from other houses in the neighborhood and continue it till the next meeting.
All right,
Will that work?
I suppose.
I move to continue HPCA 16-00139 to the December 7th meeting.
Okay. Your
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, seconded by Neela Frank Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, continued. Thank you. Next item.
HPCA 16-00147 at 500 Northwest 17th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Lydia Polly by Bob Sign of Sign Construction for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage elective, 2, construct garage elective, and 3, replace and widen driveway elective. The Commission reviewed this application previously. The applicant has provided some additional documentation on the condition of the existing garage and has also revised the design of the proposed garage. They have shortened it to reduce the square footage and to have it set farther back from the street and change some of the details about it to make it more similar to the existing historic garage.
That's correct. We proposed that.
Your name, sir, is?
Bob Sign, Sign Construction. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Katie for all the help she gave us on this project, so appreciate it, Katie. We have a single-car garage. It actually had a servant's quarters on the back, so it's extended pretty far back, but the single-car garage is in a really dilapidated state. The concrete is upheaval, everything's rotten, so we proposed a two-car garage, and we'll set it back to the site where the end of the servant's quarter is, so we'll have a little more extension on the driveway to the garage so that it doesn't block the walk path, as you can see in this walking path, and the concrete walks. It'll go back to the same end where the existing structure is, so there's a servant's quarters, and it doesn't interfere with I'm saying the distance between the two houses. I'm trying to think of the term. Setback, because that lot is actually 1.5 times larger than the other lots in the area because it sits on the corner.
To my recollection, it sounds like all of the things that we discussed and asked for have been added, or changed and added to the application.
I think, guideline 4.4.6 says no more than 450 square feet or 5% of the lot size. This expands over both of those to 525 square feet, so I'm not sure.
Well, we make it, the existing one is larger than, what's the size of the
The existing one is 408.
plus the servants' quarters?
I think that with the servants' quarters, but it extends farther back. They're just a single-car garage.
The total building area is how big?
Existing now?
Existing, yeah.
I think it's 408 right now.
It's 12 feet wide by 34 feet long.
Okay, it's total, okay.
It's 408, and
It's a
we're
single
expanding
car
to
width, that's right.
525, so.
What we talked about previously was that the historic condition of the garage is that it is 34 feet long. You can see that from the street because it's a corner lot. It's very visibly filling the entire back of the lot. So if we were to say reconstruct your historic garage, it would span almost the entire width of the property. It is currently a width, the width of the garage, the 12 feet single car is pretty limiting. and we typically have allowed people to go from a one-car up to a two-car. So even though it exceeds the 450 kind of baseline size, it seems to be similar or compatible with the proportions of the existing garage, which is not a typical garage size for our districts.
So, Mila?
Well, now, instead of, I mean, I understand that we're reducing the length of it, but we're expanding the width of it. So I don't know that that's really here nor there.
It's also the total lot coverage.
It's more than it was. It's quite a bit more.
Footprint.
So I am inclined to deny this, but that would be the reason why.
Well, I'd make a comment that, any days now to have two cars to try and get in a garage is very difficult to have one that's, 16-foot wide. It's almost impossible, so
Yep.
that's
Well,
not...
but we commonly, we hold to the 450 pretty strictly.
Unless there's a unique
Unless,
circumstance.
I think there's a unique circumstance. I agree with staff in that it was an unusual size, and in a way, it's bigger but smaller. I don't know. We talked about it last time. We didn't give a specific. I don't know what we said as far as size. It's kind of a difficult one to.
And they have reduced it from the last time. They initially had proposed it at the exact same width as the historic, or the exact same length or depth as the historic garage, doubling to a two-car. So this is not, it's not that full 34-foot length, but does widen to accommodate two vehicles.
Would you be willing to reduce the size?
I'd be willing to reduce size. The reason the size was put on there because I talked to Katie and she thought that was an agreeable size at the time when I submitted the drawings. So that's why I used those,
Right.
the 21 by 24 feet, so.
21, 3 or something I just calculated would be
Yeah.
450 square feet if you wanted to consider
Yeah.
that.
And as you know, it's like I said, it's hard to get two cars in the garage, and
Yep.
you know the depth on the cars now.
Could put anything else in there.
Yeah, that's right.
It seems that our first issue is the demolition of the existing garage.
Yes.
And Katie, I'm not sure that I remember seeing a specific finding. If you could explain your thoughts on number 2, that the existing structure does not appear to be an imminent threat, nor does it appear to be infeasible to repair.
So our ordinance, when it talks about demolition of accessory structures, talks about demolition for any structure, talks about whether or not it's an imminent threat to public health and safety. For accessory structures, we talk about demolition in cases where it may not be an imminent threat. It's not about to collapse and injure people and has to be torn down and roped off or anything, but that because of perhaps the way that the garage was originally constructed, issues that have happened with the foundation and with the structure, that repair is highly infeasible without replacing nearly all of the fabric of the historic garage.
I've got a question, though. In your first paragraph, you says, is necessary because of an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and whatever. And then item 2, you said, does not appear to be an imminent threat.
On the first paragraph of...
I see that, but
Under
I really
staff
think...
recommendation 1,
Right.
it says, is necessary because an imminent threat. And then item specific finding 2, it says, does not appear to be an imminent threat. So I'm trying to...
Well,
see what
it's
the-
really number 3 that applies under the specific findings because it's saying that
true.
functional size.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to... It seems
Right,
like
I
that's a-
agree.
That's
It's listed both ways in there.
contradicts itself, so I think, the way I read it,
I agree.
yeah.
Okay, I'm not finding the two spots that you're
No,
looking at.
well, in the first sentence, you say because...
First paragraph.
The first paragraph under demolition, you say it's necessary because of imminent threat, and then you go back to
Oh,
specific
you're
finding
right.
2.
I apologize. That is we have kind of
Standard.
a standard finding for demolitions, and
So you meant-
should have revised that, so, yep.
So you mean it does appear to be,
Okay, so...
correct? Does, not does not.
We felt that it did not appear to be an imminent threat,
Oh, okay.
but that demolition, if the commission agrees, may be justified due to other
Function.
issues of the condition.
Okay. So we're going on functionality to justify demolition.
Do you need a motion for demolition? I make a motion for HPCA 16-00147, item 1, to demolish the garage. Okay, let me, with the specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the period character of the district or property, period, and complies, yeah, is that correct? Leave that out?
Yes.
And complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the municipal code, with the specific findings
As listed?
as listed by staff, items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Moved by Joe Meacham and second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Is that Ann? Okay. And, okay, so the demolition has been approved. Construct garage. Would you be willing to reduce the length?
We'd be willing to reduce the size of the garage.
With that, Neela, would you make a motion on that? Or?
Well, I mean, I think so. I mean, you could get a 20 by 22 and a half garage. That's 450 square feet. That's plenty of room
Or
for
you could
cars and
go
some lawn
with the
equipment.
same width, but just shorter.
They proposed 21 by 25. Yeah, I mean, they could do it however to equal
Right.
450
So
square
21,
feet.
my question was, same width, just shorter, and he said he'd be willing to do that, so.
So
20
what exactly would that be to equal
21
450 square
foot
feet?
4 inches, I calculated.
We'll be willing to, reduce its size to accommodate or follow the guidelines.
But Neela's right, you can make it any proportion you want to come out 450.
Can we just make a motion to approve dependent on turning in revised drawings to equal 400 square feet with the current
450.
design? Okay.
Okay? You want to make that motion?
Yes. Just got 2 and 3. Okay, because it includes the driveway also. I make a motion to approve HPCA 16-00147, items 2 and 3, with the specific findings as designed. With the specific findings 1, 3, 4, and 5 as noted by staff, and the following condition that a revised design with the same revised plan with the same design be submitted to staff to equal 450 square feet.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Neela Crank-Clements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, items 2 and 3 are approved.
Thank you, sir.
Additions, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move HPCA 16-00161 to the end of our cases for individual consideration.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Ann Zakritz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 5 is moved to the end. So on to item 6.
HPCA 16-00166 at 612 Northwest 19th Street, Nesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Dr. William Green by Catherine Montgomery, AIA, of P&D Studio for Certificate of Appropriateness to 4 Construct Garage, elective.
Okay.
Hello, William Green, 612 Northwest 19th.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments for Dr. Green or the applicant?
I have a question for Catherine. Could you explain the difference between smart side lap siding and what have we? Fiber cement siding?
Well, thank you for asking.
Do you have samples?
No, we didn't bring samples, but which we could have. I don't know why we didn't. What we have done is we've prepared a product comparison of Hardy Plank, which is a known fiber cement siding, and SmartSide siding, which they call a fiber substrate siding. So I'll just give this to staff so that they can pass that around.
Okay.
We also have, the way we made that comparison was we got the technical specifications from the company for LP SmartSide and the technical specifications from Hardy Plank, and we made that comparison in the studio. So we only brought 3 copies of that. We also have, from the LP SmartSide, we have some side-by-side information which shows impact testing of the 2 different materials. Of course, it's by LP, so of course it's going to be in their favor. We didn't know how many technically interested people there were, so we only brought 3 of those. So if staff can actually get a set of that, that would be great.
Could you just give us your personal opinion on the difference? I mean, does it have to do with price?
Okay, so kind of as a preamble to this, at the time that the green guidelines were put together, the cementitious siding, which was Hardy Plank or Nichiha, were the ones that were available and had some success with meeting or approximating the look of wood. At that time, there were some fibrous products. There were a couple of problems with them. One was that they didn't, possibly it was rumor, but there were lots of articles out there about failure of that siding and its lack of ability to achieve longevity. The other was that it wasn't available in a smooth texture. It was that kind of rough, enhanced wood texture. Well, SmartSide now has come out with a smooth texture, which is compatible with what the cementitious texture is for, like, a Hardy Plank. When you look at the product comparison, I think some of the interesting information is that SmartSide is actually a wood fiber material, so it's closer to wood than the cementitious product. It weighs a lot less. It is, in fact, at least 50% cheaper. It comes in a longer board length, which may be meaningless to some, but part of the reason for that is that the cementitious siding has to be handled very carefully. And it's heavier, but it has to be handled carefully because if you bang it against something, it's kind of brittle. So the smart siding is a little bit more forgiving and can be more easily handled at 16 feet. The tools are the main reason why our client has requested this material. He already has a carpenter who's agreed to build the garage if it gets passed, and that carpenter does not like working with the cementitious siding because they have to use special tools and it's difficult to manipulate. So that carpenter specifically wanted to use the smart siding for its economy and ease of construction. Then, as we delved into this, we learned about the impact resistance qualities of the smart side versus the cementitious siding. So that was interesting. They both have some fire resistance ratings. In our particular case, our side setback is such that we don't have to make that wall that's adjacent to the neighboring property a rated wall, so that doesn't really matter to us. But I thought you might find that interesting. Also interesting, and I think important for this discussion, is the sustainability characteristics. Both of the products have sustainability characteristics. The cementitious siding is considered sustainable because the warranty is for 50 years. So if you get new growth wood, grown for harvest wood, you'll probably be replacing that wood 2 times in the span of 50 years that the cementitious siding would be in place. Also, the cementitious siding takes paint better than the wood does, so the painted surface actually lasts longer. And interestingly here, the SmartSide has similar green characteristics. It uses 99% of the wood tree material that's brought into the plant to manufacture the product. So there's only 1% waste, which I thought was really good. They also use trees that are indeed grown for harvest, so it doesn't impact our old growth forests. Then on the warranty, I think they're comparable. Actually, the Hardy Plank warranty, which we thought was 50 years, is only 30 years. And the SmartSide has a 5 and 50 warranty period. It's a 5-year. For the first 5 years, it's transferable, and then the 50 years is the total length of time. Now, a caveat for these warranties is that if you don't install it properly, then you void your warranty. So if you've seen failure in some of these materials, it might be because they haven't been installed properly. Besides the chipping and stuff that you might experience with cementitious siding, the other thing is both of these products come with some amount of pre-finish from the factory. In the case of SmartSide, it comes primed. In the case of Hardy Plank, you can actually get finished colors, or you could just have it primed. When you cut these boards, you have to make sure that you paint them and seal them when you butt them up against each other. You can't just butt them up against in a naked joint and not seal it, because then when the moisture gets in there, then that's what causes it to fail. So with all of those comparisons, we are doing a lot of affordable housing projects now, and these fiber substrate materials are being used a lot, and it's a very economical material, and I think it's quite suitable for our historic neighborhoods. Comes in smooth, and that was a big drawback earlier. That barrier isn't there anymore. We've also included some other little notes and findings, including some websites that people could visit if they wanted to on their own. Of course, we would love to have this project approved today, and we know that the guidelines are silent. They don't even actually talk about wood fiber siding at all. They just specifically call out that cementitious siding is permitted as a substitute material, and that vinyl and metal are not. So I have some citations from the guidelines, but I also brought some suggested unique circumstances that you could consider.
Catherine, just if you could go back to the cost of the SmartSide siding. I don't think it has any bearing on our decision today, but I just want to know if you said it's 50% cheaper than Hardy Plank or wood, solid wood.
I think it was Hardy Plank.
Hardy Plank?
It's actually less than that, but that sounded too good to be true, so I'm just saying 50%.
We're making mental notes for our future project.
Yes.
And Catherine, will this product be installed as individual planks of wood, or does it come in sheets or multiple? There are some products that come in larger sheets that look like
These are boards that look just like a wood board. They don't have a bevel, which you won't see anyway because the corners will be covered. So they'll still look like lap siding, and then you'll have the trim on the corners. And I think in our documents, we probably selected the width. Also, I wanted to say just for our case, besides the siding, there were some additional materials that staff put into the staff report. Some of them had to do with windows on the garage door, and we're not wanting windows on the garage door. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
My feeling about this new product, now that it has a smooth finish, that it's equivalent, architecturally, it's probably more acceptable than Hardy Plank, more wood.
More wood.
So, It seems like it's a good product. We probably, if we were revising the guidelines, we probably would have included it along with hardy plank, but that's just my opinion.
Did you say you had some unique circumstances?
Yeah, they should have been passed out to you. You know, I just made up some stuff, right? But the reason why I made up that stuff was because I was looking through the rest of the guidelines. Section 1.5 is actually the one that talks about energy efficiency in older buildings. And it's interesting that, you know, in 8 pages, we tried to address, you know, they tried to address everything that was thought to be an issue from sustainability, including weatherization, reflectivity, windows, appliances, and even the reusability of deconstructed materials. But they didn't really talk about siding, except to say that sustainable practices and materials for new construction would be encouraged, and that's on pages 21 and 22. And then also to consider LEED qualified products. So that's where our comparison comes into play, because we gave you the LEED citations for both of those materials that we were comparing. Then the next section was 1.9, which is the overall approach and format. You know, talks about how the commission makes decisions. And item number 3 on that, which is on page 36, says, if material replacement in kind is not feasible or practical, the HPC may consider the use of appropriate substitute materials that are sustainable. So from what I could tell, that's the only place in the document that actually talks about the consideration of substitute materials from the perspective of sustainability. Which again is interesting, because the document doesn't really talk about, you know, how do we consider substitute materials that might come before the body. Then the next section, of course, which has been reproduced for you in the staff report, is on page 138 and talks about the cementitious siding. And I only cite that one to say that it doesn't forbid the use of this material. It's silent on this kind of material. So the unique circumstances that I'm suggesting are built out of those referenced places, and an acknowledgement that the side-by-side study that we did has some validity, and the basis of being able to say yes.
Very thorough, as usual. You have comments?
I'll just note that staff has observed increasing requests for this product. We are hearing from applicants and from contractors that they prefer it over fiber cement for a number of the reasons that Catherine mentioned, that it's easier to work with. Now that additional profiles and shapes are available, that it is a good substitute. I think the Commission has quite firmly established a level of comfort with alternative materials, especially for new construction, when it accurately replicates the historic material. So I think we've already said it's okay to use something other than wood siding for new construction. And just evaluating this against, does it meet our concerns about sustainability, and does it meet the test of accurately replicating the look of wood siding? It's something that I think staff is feeling increasingly comfortable with this product, and as people have requested it. Do you have any observations, Angela? No? You can say no, it's okay.
I think we're probably...
There has been some information as well regarding the tendency for these materials to delaminate quicker than one or the other. And I do not have any supporting documentation printed for you on that, but it's my understanding that SmartSide is actually less likely to delaminate under certain conditions than hardy plank is to break down. So that is something that I need to do some additional research for you on. But again, we're looking forward to utilizing as many acceptable and appropriate products as there are available to us.
Thank you. Questions or additional comments? Everybody seems to be in favor, possibly. Does set a precedent for new construction.
I'll say that I'm honestly not, a historic garage should be made out of wood, in my opinion. But Hardy, if we're going to approve Hardy Plank, I think this is right on track with that. I see no problem with it.
Okay.
And of course, our project is a new build.
Right.
For new construction.
I would feel comfortable perhaps going forward with this idea and limit it to accessory buildings only and not, until further study, but not allowing it on new construction that's attached to the main structure, at least until further study. That would at least give people building a garage another material that would be less expensive. But I'm hesitant to agree to have it applied to an addition at this point.
Or infill development, like a house, a new home.
Right. Until further study. I don't think, I mean, at least at this time. Maybe it needs to be a workshop or something, but...
How long has this product been around when it didn't have the smooth finish?
I don't know. Ken, did you?
Kind of curious how...
Ken Onchman with the Preservation and Design Studio.
I didn't really look into how long the smooth has been on. I know that we've had requests, and generally when I went to look it up, it was just the rough cedar-like finish.
I'm just curious with how long has it been around? Has it been...
The LP has been making fiber products since the mid-'90s. They had a product they put out in the mid to late '90s that, where, like somebody had mentioned, that had gotten a bad rap. There was something wrong with it. Now, they revised it and came up with the Smart Side, which is much better than what the previous 1990s product was.
You know when that new product...
Oh, I want to say early 2000s.
Okay, so it's probably been out for at least 10 years.
At least.
And also just advise you need to sign in also, please.
Oh, very good.
Thank you, Rita.
To your comment, I think until we actually take the step of revising the guidelines in some way, any application for this product would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and we would determine, is it appropriate in the proposed location? Is it a good match for the siding that they're trying to replicate? But I think that might be a good kind of just informal bit of guidance for applicants.
I mean, I would feel more comfortable, because if we allow this, and if you're saying people are asking for it, it just seems like temporarily we need to have our own idea of what we might approve it for or limit its use for.
I agree with your opinion.
Okay. Is that a motion?
Okay. I make a motion to approve HPCA 16-00166. With the specific findings 1 through 4, and the unique circumstance that smart siding can be, that the commission, I don't know how y'all want it, but I'm going to list these two, that one, that the HB Commission acknowledges innovation and appropriate substitute materials is ongoing in the historic preservation industry, and 2, that the siding proposed for use will be smooth, textured, factory prime, painted with a filled painted finish, and I want to add to that, applied as individual, what do you call it?
On a case-by-case
Boards.
basis.
And individual boards. Was that?
Instead of
Individual boards as opposed to panels?
As opposed to sheets.
Right,
that-
because I think it looked in the specifications, the product does come in
Right.
that.
Yeah, that the product, that it would be similar in size to,
scale.
and scale to original, to wood siding.
The specs that you passed out, it shows that it also comes in like 4x8 sheets, other sizes. So we want to make sure that what we're putting in is
Planks.
the same proportion as the planks.
And if you go to the packet that was turned in with all of our drawings and cut sheets, we provided a cut sheet that describes it appropriately.
Right.
Okay?
Second.
That's right. That's been moved by Joe Meacham and second by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, been approved with conditions or
Thank you.
clarifications. And I need to abstain from this next one too, Jeff.
HPCA 16-00168 at 217 Northwest 32nd Street, Edgemere Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Sam Ingaldi and Chris Costelli by Lynn Hicks of Fence Masters for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace fence and gate elective.
Great. Katie and staff had recommended a continuance on this item.
That recommendation was because the proposed fence and gate is forward of the 40% mark established by the guidelines for fencing. There is an existing bit of railing or fencing there, as well as an existing post that the applicant wanted to line the new gate and fence up with. But staff didn't feel like we had enough of a unique circumstance to recommend approval for that location. I think the applicant wanted to discuss their proposal with you.
Yes, yes. I'm Sam Ingaldi from 217 Northwest 32nd Street. And that first, that you had a picture before this one. They gave a good representation of it, I think. Did you not? Showed the fence posts and the partial fence that's there.
Could you scroll through the images? There you go.
There, yes, that's it. As you can see, there are 2 fence posts in front of the carport and a portion of fence that's connected to the front of the house. All right, I would like to go to the staff report under issues and considerations, page 3, paragraph C, where it says, the existing fence material at the west side of the driveway and an existing post at the east side of the driveway appear to be old, but their age is unknown. And we are saying, myself and Christian Costelli, who owns the home, that presents a gray area. It's just, if you look underneath that paragraph with guideline 2.8.11, says, while the existing post and fencing indicate previous fencing in this location, it is not clear that it is historic. Again, what I'm saying is that that's a gray area. And what we would like to do is just reinstall a gate that appears obvious to us was there at a previous time. Now, I've spoken to neighbors that have lived there since the late 70s, and no one can remember seeing a gate there. They cannot remember if the posts were there or not also, but as stated in this report, it is clear that they are very old, and they do have hinges on them. We feel that it would add to the look of the home. We would be in line with what is already existing there. And
I'm in agreement with staff in that I mean, they may have been there a long time, but I don't think that there's enough either. I would still call it non-historic material to say that you just need to put the gate back.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but we
and it's so much forward of what we usually approve, the location.
But
so it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like bringing back a large non-historic piece that wasn't there when the house was built.
Do we know that?
Or even, I mean...
It's well outside the pattern of what we would normally see on any of our other historic
homes. What we're saying, what I'm saying, is a very plain steel or iron fence post. We don't know when that was put. All we know is that it's very old.
Unfortunately, we put the burden is on the homeowner to provide the historic date of, of what we might consider non-historic material.
Could I make an interjection, please? My name is Chris Castelli, and I reside at the home with Sam. If you go throughout the neighborhood, pardon these glasses, they're prescription. If you go throughout the neighborhood, you're going to see wooden fences flush with the house, just like ours, that are not historic. Now, my question is, why are they there? Did they come forward, such as we did? Did they not? Did they put them up without approval? My question and my synopsis is they probably didn't come to you people and ask for your approval and put wooden fences and also, what do you call those old chain link fences all throughout the front of their house. Now, we're asking to put an ornamental gate there. That's all we're asking. Now, I understand your rules and your regulations, and we'll follow them. If we have to, we'll go back farther. That's not a problem. But my point is, why throughout the neighborhood are there wooden gates that are flush with the house that have not been, the panel did not go around and see? Now, if you go through that neighborhood, you're going to see various homes, which I'm stating are, in fact, out of line with what you and your rules are saying. That's the only point I want to make.
Mr. Castelli, this neighborhood was zoned HP in 1977. It's possible those fences or gates were placed there prior to that date. It is also possible, as you say, that they were added without asking permission.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't know that unless someone brings the case before us, unless someone calls code enforcement or a neighbor,
Well, I'm not about to do that. I just wanted to make that point.
Right, I understand.
I see that this, if you look at the fence or the panels that hold the gate, they're clearly old. Now, whether they were put there when the house was built in 1928, we don't know. Were they put there maybe 1940? Possibly. But I am just saying that I think it will add security and it will give an enhancement to the neighborhood. And that's...
If I may speak, what we're also asking is if you would just look at what we're trying to do with that. We're just carrying the look straight across there, and we're asking you to look at this as a gray area, and I'm sure that you come across this all the time. We've lived here for 10 years. We've never had the opportunity to speak to you before, but I'm sure that you see this all the time, and you must see other gray areas where it isn't clear as to what was there and what we want to do with it, and that you look at the case on its merits, this particular case on its merits, what we're planning on putting there, which is, I do believe you have a picture given to you by Fence Masters of what we would like to have there, which is in line with the rest of the iron that's on the house. And again, look at it as a case-by-case basis and see it as a possible gray area there, because there is no way of knowing that how old those fence posts are. And the adjoining fence that's connected to the house. Also, the front steps that go up, I don't know if you have a picture of that, they go up in the front of the house. That iron is in line with this piece of iron that you're seeing from the fence post to the house, and also that, yes, that there. And there is more steps in the front of the house. I believe there's 8 steps in front of the house that show the same type of railing. There, that's it. That's the same type of railing that you may say is not historic. But again, it's pleasing to the eye. We don't know how long it's been there, and I don't think anyone here is going to say that that is not appropriate for that home or that area.
Katie, where would the fence be if they complied with the 40% rule?
Well, and because it's transparent, it doesn't actually have to be 40% back. It has to be 6 feet back from the front wall of the house.
Okay.
And according to guideline 2.8.8, shall be located behind any open front porch of the main building, which in this case it is, and the open front porch of the main building of any adjacent property. So it looks like we're still not in compliance.
In my opinion, regulation 2.8.8 is a mandatory regulation as it uses the language shall be located as opposed to may be located.
So I would recommend that, again, Joe Meacham mentioned earlier that the burden of proof is on the applicant. So I would recommend that we continue the case to give you time to see if that was there.
I don't think we're going to want to do it with contingents.
Yeah, we have looked.
We'll just go further. Excuse me, sorry.
We have tried to find more information when we knew that this was coming before all of you. And we were not. We asked our neighbors. As a matter of fact, your chair, Alan Brown, lives right next to us at 215. He's been there since 1981, and we also asked him. He can't remember what was there at the time that he moved in. He can't remember if the posts were there. He can't remember if a gate was there. So, we don't, again, as I said, we're asking you to look at it as a gray area, as you probably find in other petitions that come before you, and that you just weigh it in on its merits and see what's there, and see what we're trying to do. And,
Katie, can you approve a change of the fence if it falls in the guidelines?
We can approve it if it's set back the required distance in the guidelines administratively. I know you have research to try and find historic photos and that sort of thing. One other thing that might be worth looking into, and we haven't discussed this before, is the material of the actual posts that are there, and because that might give you some hint of the age of them, whether it's...
I have asked Lynn Hicks, who is putting in, who was supposed to put in this gate for us if it gets approved. I can call him from here. He said if you had questions, I asked him if they were steel, if it was steel or iron, if those posts were steel or iron, and he said it's either or. They were all interchangeable when all this was being done, and they're still interchangeable today. So he says it could be or not. But I have his number, and we can call him, and any one of you can talk to him. He will pick up the phone.
I think what we're hearing is that the fence needs to be located just to follow the guidelines. We don't really have an exception, a way to make an exception for this one.
Okay, that's fine. Can we put it back where you want it? Exactly, what is that, usually 6 feet further back?
That would just be your minimum. You can 6 feet or further.
Now, do we have to put a request in again for that, or do we just...
Staff can approve that.
Yep. The commission can continue this item today, and then you just get a revised site plan to us to update the location of where the fence will go, and staff can approve that.
We'd like to do that, please.
Before you both step away, if both of you gentlemen can make sure and sign in on the pad at the podium if you haven't already done so.
Okay.
Take care of that bit of housekeeping.
So shall we continue it to just a month, or?
I would say since we anticipate administratively approving it, let's continue it to January 4th, and that way we aren't scrambling to have you on the docket for December meeting that you don't need to attend.
Then I'll move to continue HPCA case 16-00168 to the January 4th meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, that item is motion has been made to continue that item from Neela Crank-Clemens, second by Suzanne Broadbent. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Hearing this one out of order, HPCA 16-00161 at 909 Northwest 19th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Hearst Holdings LLC for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace siding with smart trim, that should say smart side, required. 2, repair window trim required. 3, repair and replace windows required, 4, construct garage required, 5, replace paving required, and 6, install French doors at rear required.
My name is Steve Hurst. I'm the owner of the property. I live at 3901 Red Deer Crossing in Edmond. And the purpose of my comments here is to apologize. I've been a developer in Oklahoma City for 20 years and do commercial development across the city and state, and decided to get into the residential business on a whim between projects. And I had a young man that was working for me that I sponsored him. As a business owner, I said, this is your dream, you go do it, I'll fund it, and you take care of the nitty-gritty. And so we bought this house. It's a gorgeous house, and done to it is gorgeous. But I found out he was stealing from me and has stolen over $300,000 from me. And this was one of the projects which he was working on at the time. And I asked him repeatedly, okay, we're okay with the preservation folks. You've done what you need to do with the historical people. Yes, yes, yes. So found out about the embezzlement and fired him. And the next day I got a lawsuit from the city on this property. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I went immediately and met with Angela to just try to understand just what the heck was going on. So Angela and Katie have been awesome through this process, and we want to do the right thing. Always done the right thing. We want to do the right thing. We've attempted to give whatever they need. She's been very accommodating. She came out and saw the house, so she can attest to what we've done. Some of the arguments, the reason we were pushed down is some of the arguments that were made earlier by Catherine were some of the same arguments that we were going to make as far as smart siting. But I'll allow David to address some of those as well. And if you have any questions of me, I'm an open book. Tell you whatever you want to know.
Good afternoon. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Mr. Hurst has hired me to represent him in this matter, and I'll echo his comments about staff's willingness to work with us, meet with us to try to find a reasonable solution to the issue that Mr. Hurst now finds himself in. There are a handful of items within the staff report, items 2, 3, 5, and 6, all of which staff recommends approval as that they are within the guidelines. I might just briefly touch on them. Item 2 and 3 is replace and repair wood trim and the sashes, and staff has pointed out that these, the work done was within the guidelines and does recommend approval. Likewise, on item 5, replacing the paving in the backyard, although we are enlarging it, it is not visible from the right-of-way. This is a street in which there is no access to the backyard from the front. All access is rear through the alley, so it's not visible from 19th Street. And finally, item 6 is install French doors on the back of the house. We are widening and opening, but this has been a request that I think this commission hears more and more often these days. It is on the back of the house, again, not visible from the right-of-way, so staff has recommended approval. The other items to discuss are, item 1, replace the siding with Smart Trim. Ms. Montgomery did a wonderful job of explaining why Smart Trim now is favored not only by people actually paying for the product, but also by contractors. I don't want to put words in Katie's mouth so she can confirm or deny what I'm about to say, but when she came out, I believe her comment to me was she had a difficult time picking out what was Smart Trim and what was original. One of the guidelines, criteria is it has to match appearance. Now that we have the new smooth finish, we've met that criteria. I think Catherine did a wonderful job explaining why it's sustainable. I believe the chairman said that perhaps the guidelines need to be revised, or maybe the next iteration of the guidelines. This product perhaps would be considered acceptable. I would submit that it's acceptable today. If you are literally a few feet from the house and you can't tell a difference, I would say that the spirit and intent of the guidelines have been met. I think it's a better product than the Hardy Board. I think it's more in keeping with what the original siding of this house was, that being wood. I don't see why there would be a distinction on new build, old build. I think if the guidelines are revised, there will probably be a push to have this product be a product that would be considered appropriate. The other item is the item 4, construct garage. This one, we have a 690 square foot garage, and as staff notes within the staff report, there was a range on this block from 216 square feet to 660 square feet. So although we are slightly higher than the biggest one on the block, the guidelines are clear that it is not a block analysis. It is the district analysis. And if you look through the entire district, you will see garages that far exceed the 690 square feet. Additionally, I think it's worth noting that I believe the Mesta Park Design Review Committee did review this application and did grant their support and their blessing to the size of the garage, mainly because the garage is not accessed, again, from 19th Street. You can't see it from the right-of-way. The only way you'd ever see the garage is if you were on the alley, because it is a rear access. It has always been a larger garage on the block when you look at the old Sanborn maps. So we believe what we have here is, again, consistent with and in keeping with the spirit and intent of the guidelines. The guidelines make clear that the garage needs to be notably a accessory and secondary structure. This is a very large house in terms of size and scale and mass, and the garage accomplishes all those. It's a single floor. It is not visible, but it's still in keeping architecturally with the main house. Again, we did use the smart siding product on this structure as well. For all the reasons we believe it's appropriate on the main house, we also believe it's appropriate on the garage. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and we would just submit that the guidelines don't prohibit this material. If they don't prohibit it, it must have some allowance for flexibility. It must allow for this commission to look at it, hear the case, learn about the product, and make a decision. I'm not sure if anybody has taken the time, like Katie did, to go and look at the product, but if you do, I would submit that you likewise will have a very difficult time understanding what was original and what was put on. And so with that, we would ask for your approval.
Were you all here for the earlier discussion on the product?
Yes, ma'am. Been here the whole time.
So I think that was, I mean, I feel like that we were pretty, I feel like that was my idea on the keeping it to the accessory buildings. I think everybody was pretty much in agreement. We never approve of, when it's just wood siding that's readily available. To my knowledge, we never approve a different product for the main body of the historic house.
Well,
I mean, that's reserved.
Since I was quoted, I was saying that this seemed to be an acceptable substitution for hardy plank, which is only used for new construction, not for replacement of existing siding. And I assume the existing siding was all removed, and the existing siding was all removed, and this product was replaced.
No, it was patched.
It was what?
It was patched.
Patched.
There was certain siding that was deteriorated. The stem wall on that east side was deteriorated, and so it had snapped a bunch of the siding. So it was patched.
So it's a mixture.
Correct. You can't tell which one. The reveal is the same. The texture is the same. You can't tell.
What percentage would you say was replaced with?
Oh, on one side there was approximately, on the east side where it was failing, there was approximately 60% that was replaced. On other sides it went from 10%, 25%. It just varied depending on what was rotting and what was not rotting.
I'm sorry, that's in the report.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got the percentages on page 2 of the staff report. I'll also note that guidelines in chapter, so we have separate guidelines for use of alternative materials on historic structures versus new construction. 3.1.34 for existing historic buildings says installation of fiber cement products may be appropriate for rear or side elevations not readily visible from the public right-of-way in order to replace wood siding. That is not something that we see asked for very often. I think most people want the same siding product all the way around, and when they know it's not going to be approved in a visible location, they don't pursue it for a non-visible location. But that language is there within the guidelines. Now, this product has been used on all sides of the structure at various percentages.
And I mean, I think it's kind of weird that it comes up in two situations today, and that we discussed it so in depth.
Coordinate this?
But the thing is, I think the commission, as a commissioner, I feel like if I'm saying yes, that I'm giving, we're actually giving permission for future, people to come and ask for it, even though we do it on an individual basis. So, I think that's what makes me more uncomfortable, and that's why I think we discussed maybe limiting something that we haven't approved in the past, just to maybe accessory buildings. So, that's my comment on that. It doesn't seem like when the material is readily available, like wood at the lumber yard to go get and match, that we understand that there's a lot of products we could use that you could look at from the street and it would look the same.
No, you can look
but
at this
that's
from a
not the
couple of
same when we're talking about historic building and materials that are similar or readily available that you could use that were actually, identical to the historic material.
But the intent, what is the intent of that comment? Is the intent? Hold on.
Not
you want it to
no look.
The same? You want it to?
No looking, to be.
To be the same.
To be the same. Because that's what I'm saying. We could approve a lot of different things that would look identical, but if we open that gate for historic buildings, every time that we use materials that are not are identical to the historic material, we're just losing more of the historic building little by little, particularly in the case where it's available at the lumber yard. If it was a material that was hard to find, then I think that's where we try to, be more generous and think about alternatives, but not when it's readily available.
There was a comment in the guidelines, and I should have wrote down the page, but it says that the issues with some of those products was it rarely replicates the dimensions or the appearance. We're talking about replicate. This replicates the appearance and the dimensions of that product. So it states in the guidelines that there could be other materials that come into use. It states that. And the goal is for appearance and dimensions.
I have to say one thing, because Katie said something I did not know, that 3.1.34 does permit fiber cement products limited use on the rear or side elevations, not visible from the public right-of-way.
We just did that last meeting.
That was done at a garage.
So if this product is judged to be suitable, comparable to the fiber cement material, I would say that it could possibly be used and limited, just as it says in 3.1.34.
I agree, but I think that 45 minutes ago we agreed that it was more of a temporary thing that we were going to. The discussion went that we would limit to accessory buildings so that we would have more time to study the product.
That was in your motion, but I didn't realize that we permitted this on the...
well, that says it's not even the same product. That's the cement product. They're talking about now another.
I know, but we kind of said it was comparable to that.
Only to be used on accessory buildings.
That was your motion,
right?
But there's nothing within the guidelines that says you cannot do this. In the guidelines, again...
It's not in the spirit of the guidelines to use other materials that are when a material is readily available to repair a historic building, that material should be used.
Well, and I think I would disagree, and perhaps we have a different way of viewing what the spirit... perhaps that's quantifiable and definable, but I don't think it is.
Let me just note that we've got several guidelines that talk about in-kind replacement. 3.1.4 says repairs shall be done with like materials.
Okay.
3.1.15 says new material should match the historic in material type, dimension, design, configuration, texture, surface coating, and visual appearance. Then we call out that other products may be appropriate for rear or side elevations not readily visible. So I think my interpretation of the intent of that is to say that on the historic structure, in a visible location, historic fabric should be replaced in like kind. In locations that are not visible from the public right-of-way, that are not affecting the way the public perceives the historic character of a historic district, we have an ability to exercise some discretion with some alternative materials. But I think throughout the guidelines there are references to and distinctions between historic structures and non-historic structures, visible historic fabric and minimally visible historic fabric.
Can I also point out
I didn't
deadline
realize that.
3.1.16? There's some pretty directive language there. When a missing or severely deteriorated feature, element, or component is replaced, it shall be replaced in kind, that is, matching the original in dimensions, detail, size, form, material, and finish. So if there was originally wood siding, that would say to me that an acceptable replacement material would not be SmartSide, it would not be Hardy Plank.
I agree.
And I guess I would
Except for
disagree because
3.1.34.
we do match in original dimensions and detail, size, form, material, and finish.
Not material. The
No
material is
material.
wood.
Well, if it's 99% wood, I would make the argument that the material is matching. And let's make sure we're all clear, these are just guidelines. These are not regulations, guidelines by their nature.
When it says shall, though,
Sure. And I think we do match original dimensions, detail, size, form, material, finish. And again, they're guidelines. Guidelines by, and I apologize, you can laugh at my argument all
no,
you
I'm
want.
just saying,
but let me
something
finish.
real and something that's made to look like the thing. There are many things, examples out there that are similar, other than building materials, that are similar. We buy lots of things that are cheaper that look like expensive items. But in this case, we have the ability to go buy the wood.
I would agree with, except for that 3.1.34. There's a
And today of all days, I do not think that we are ready to approve a material that
Now,
we've only approved once.
If they had removed all of the siding replaced with this, I would obviously feel different. But
We have been-
repairing it, I'm not so sure. Because we do permit alternative product similar in that one paragraph. I
One
can
of
see you
the
shaking your head,
things-
John.
One of the things that you might consider is the fact that we don't normally approve alternative products anywhere on the primary structure. It's fairly rare.
It is.
Because you start out thinking about replacement in kind with materials that are readily available. By the time staff gets to a point where they're thinking about recommending approval for an alternative material on any side of the house, we have already looked at the available products and thought about how those products expand and contract in heat and in moisture and various other rubbing against abilities that happen with those materials. At this point, we're not absolutely certain that we fully understand those bits and pieces of this particular product.
In fact, Catherine,
You may be more aware.
Catherine even said that the application of the material is very important. We do not have proof that this material was appropriately applied. You've already said that you've had problems with your contractor, so we're all of the
No, he didn't say he had problems with the contractor.
Okay.
Let's make sure
Well, we didn't
we're...
have a building permit for the garage, so we have problems.
But you can go look at the product.
But we can't tell if each end was sealed. And that's what Angela is speaking to, is that this is a product that is not proven to this commission that we just discussed today, that we would look at approving it for accessory buildings only. That was our discussion.
Well, then that strikes me as maybe we agree on all issues but one, the main house. The secondary structure is
Right.
this product, and to use your motion,
We're
I
not
guess
there
we
yet, but yes.
conform to what you, through your motion in the previous case, deemed appropriate. So it strikes me that that's the only issue that we perhaps don't agree on.
We haven't talked about the garage.
I'd love to talk about it. What questions do you have?
Well, it's larger. There was no permit, because if you would have applied for a permit, you would have come here, we would have told you that you were limited to 450 square feet.
Well, again, we understand that there have been some things that happened that perhaps weren't appropriate, but I don't think that we'd be limited to 450 square feet. I think if you look at the overall dimensions of garages on the block, there is one that is 660 square feet. The Neighborhood Association Design Review did review it and was fine with the garage. There are extenuating circumstances here in that it's not visible from the right-of-way. The only way you'd ever see this garage is if you were driving down the alley.
There's only one person that this would affect that would see
And that's not what we look at. We are a design review. So I don't think that
Well, you've asked the question,
Well,
can you see it from right of way?
Was there information submitted in regards to the size of the existing garage or did you demolish a garage?
No.
There, according to this, by 1955, no garage is shown on the Sanborns. And you've got, passed out today, I had copies of the Sanborn maps as I wrote the staff report, and I didn't include it in your attachments, but you've got a copy at your seat that shows it in 1922 and then 1955. It looks like it was pretty easily half the width of the lot, so that would be 25 feet by, I would estimate a roughly 20 by 25 foot garage, something like that. It's not a gigantic garage, but it's by no means one of the teeny tiny ones that we also see. I included the Sanborn map of the entire block from 22 and 55, so we do see a range of garage shapes and sizes in both of those time periods. I think there was a little bit, some remnants of concrete in the yard that may or may not have been from the historic garage, but and I think I just could see that on an aerial photo. But other than that, and other than the Sanborns, we didn't have any information about the specifics of the historic garage.
Is the Sanborn map in here? It's
It's not in your staff report. It's in your additional materials at your seat there.
And if you look at the guidelines at 4.4.6, the last sentence says, additional factors including the level of visibility of a new garage and the size of massing of surrounding structures may be considered. And if you do that, I would submit that what we have applied for certainly is appropriate, certainly conforms to the guidelines.
We do approve larger garages, but we generally do it after a complete survey has been made of the neighborhood and all of the sizes of the garages have been identified. Do we have that information, Katie?
Staff did some evaluation of what was available through the county assessor's website of the surrounding block, and it is on page 9 of your staff report. We found that there was a range from 216 to 660 square feet for the block, and that's the north side of 19th, south side of 20th, so the properties that are along the alley there. 7 of the garages were less than 450 square feet, 5 were over 500, 3 had no garage at all.
So are you saying that the largest garages are 500 square feet?
The largest garage was 660.
Oh, 660.
Yep.
In the exact comment from the individual with the Mesta Park group said, those who responded seem to think because the visibility is limited, the size is not an issue. And if you look district-wide, 690 feet is not excessive. Perhaps it might even be on the small end.
Well, to me, 4.4.6 is very clear that a replacement garage may be approved up to a total footprint of 450 square feet or 5% of the lot, whichever is greater, and 450 controls, in my view.
And I would agree, except for the addition of the last sentence. If the last sentence was in there, I'd agree 100%, but there's got to be a reason that last sentence was added. It has to give some discretion. And if they didn't want to give any discretion, it would be black letter law that would say up to 450 or 5%, whichever is greater, period, end of discussion. But it's not.
size and massing. We shouldn't put those sentences in there if we don't need to follow them.
So the last sentence talks about two things: the visibility, 1, and 2, the size and massing of surrounding structures. So I think Mary Jo said a few minutes ago that we typically get a survey of all of the garages, and Katie kind of brought that up. This one still is bigger than the largest garage, and I just don't know that we would have approved something larger than anything else on the street had this come to us before construction.
The survey provided in your staff report is limited to this street or block. The
Yes,
guidelines don't
that's
limit
what we
it
look
to that.
at.
The guidelines reference the neighborhood. And so if I were to provide you a survey neighborhood-wide, 690 square feet as proposed in our application would not be near the
Doesn't
largest.
reference the neighborhood, just says surrounding structures.
Surrounding
No,
structure.
if you look through other portions of the guidelines, it's clear that what is referenced is the neighborhood. It doesn't limit it to a block.
We do look at blocks typically, so I wonder,
We look across the block, across the street when you can, I mean, typically we've used, to my memory, we've looked across the street at the garages across the street and the garages on the same block. When things are on a corner, we look at corner garages. I mean, we try to pick a group of houses that are close enough, like a, real estate comp or something, things that are close enough to actually, make a difference. We can't pick
we used
one
to have-
6 blocks away or average the entire Mesta Park.
You used to say like adjacent or adjoining in another section. Now-
But I think we can.
We deny people building a
Letting,
2-story garage unless there's one that touches their property. So when we're looking at sizes, we're looking at surrounding areas.
Sure, and that may be the practice of this commission. That's not what the guidelines say. The guidelines say, or district, or historic district. They don't limit it to adjacent. That may be the practice of this commission, but that's not what the guidelines that you're supposed to be upholding
Or we can go with the
say.
450.
What guideline are you talking about there?
This is just starting at 4.4 and littered throughout the entirety of garages section. It references, let's see, the last portion of the last sentence on policy should generally appear as secondary structures and not visually overwhelm or compete with other historic buildings of the property or district. Then if you go down to commission review, it says construction of new or replacement garages should follow the historic setback for garages on the property.
What number?
This is 4.4.3 of other garages in the streetscape or historic district. It's clear that what is referenced is the entire district,
But we
not
can't,
this
we
block.
cannot, every time somebody comes in for a garage, we can't take the square feet of every garage in the entire district and average it and use that. If we would have done that, then, we could have done that and put it in. That would have been an easy way to decide. Instead, we looked at historic design, sizes, what we thought would fit, and we came up, I say we, I wasn't even here. The commission, the planning commission came up with the 450 after much discussion because garages were getting too large because there wasn't a parameter it was difficult. So we limited. We've told many people that have come in here 450, 450, 450.
I have no doubt that that is accurate, that you've limited lots of people to 450 square feet. But what I'm saying is there's nothing within these guidelines that you have to limit them to 450 square feet. And you may not
But
have
it does
the
give us
practice.
permission to.
You may not have the practice of looking district-wide, but certainly the guidelines that my client
you
owns a
agree
piece of
that we have-
property within
but you would-
references a
Right.
district-wide. And when
But would you agree we have permission to limit it to 450?
Well, I think you've got permission to do whatever you think is appropriate. These are guidelines. Guidelines by their nature are discretionary, and I think that there is certainly within 4.4.6 plenty of room to allow discretion when you have a large front home, a back alley accessed garage, and the ability to see that the massing is certainly consistent with the other structures on the block.
And it's not to say we might have done a larger garage, but we did not have that opportunity because it was built before we got to see the plan. That
And I
I think
understand
also is
that.
very
and
difficult.
I'd like to touch on this. You are to review it as if it hadn't been done, and I understand human nature, that's difficult. But the comments that I'm getting seem to almost be punishing my client for something he had no control of. We're sorry that this happened, but we are here.
We are sorry, too. We really try. We have a lot of people come in after the fact, and it does make it very difficult. And we haven't said no yet.
And I hope that you won't.
What? But, it has been, I would say typically, we have been approving garages a lot closer. We had the person before you, we had them reduce the size of their garage.
This was a 2-car garage, but it has a 5-foot by the length or width of the garage storage room. Otherwise, it's a 2-car garage. And the people that live there, the Mesta Park people, have said they don't have a problem with it.
Again, I go back to 4.4.6. up to a total footprint of 450 square feet or 5% of the lot, whichever is greater. And to your point, the additional factor statement is a permissive, uses permissive language, may be considered. It doesn't require the commission to consider it. We may consider it. In my view, 450 square feet over 5% of the lot size, whichever is greater, is the controlling factor.
I think some of the things that might be worth additional evaluation, and if people are open to a continuance, would be looking slightly expanding the boundary of the area of garages that we evaluated, maybe further evaluating what the size of the historic garage would have been, looking more closely at those Sanborn maps, and I don't know. It's, if we were reviewing this as if you had not, let's assume it hasn't been built, we would say some on the commission feel that this may be too large. Let's either consider reducing the size or look for more information to support the size, such as the prevalence of larger garages in the surrounding area, more documentation of the size of the historic garage. I think that's what the commission would likely say.
Right.
I'm in agreement.
If it come in originally.
For a new application, which is how we treat this.
Right. Okay. So continue.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve the items that were recommended by staff first.
All right.
Is that okay?
No comments on those?
I don't think we had any.
All right.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 16-00161, items 2, 3, 5, and 6. Let's see. With the specific findings and conditions noted by staff in the staff report.
Second.
Okay. It's moved by Joe Meacham and second by Neela Clements. All in favor?
Can I ask
Aye.
a question?
Aye.
I'm just trying to understand.
You're getting approved on those items.
Okay.
Okay.
Approved on the items recommended by staff for approval.
Items 2, 3, 1,
No.
2, 3.
2, 3, 5, and 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those items are approved. Next. Did you have a question now?
No, go ahead. I misspoke. I jumped in too soon.
That's okay. I just wanted to get the motion out there and
I was going
approved.
to, okay. So I make a motion to continue item 4 on HPCA 16-00161 to that would be the December 7th meeting.
Which means the information has
You
to
have
be...
to have the information in by next Tuesday.
So that's just on the garage?
Yeah.
This one.
What about
one more?
the siding?
We're taking them separately.
We're taking them separately.
We're taking them separately.
Okay, well,
We haven't finished with the siding. We're just trying to get the ones that we've...
okay, if I don't want to continue.
If you want a decision.
Okay.
So that's why I'm just trying to understand the process.
It's already built, so it's not going to do anything.
I'm sorry.
So,
If you-
I think on both of these items, on the garage and on the siding, I think there is an opportunity to provide some additional information that may, and consider if there are any revisions you'd be willing to agree to.
Well, I know that door's not approved. I'd be more than willing to change that door. I apologize for that. but
We're going to,
Sure,
I'm
we can do it.
suggesting that we continue it so that you have an opportunity to bring more information in regards to the size of the garages
Well, how is
in
that
a
going to
larger
change?
range. What?
You seem like you're pretty steadfast in your opinion that
I'm only one person here.
it only refers to that block.
I think everybody's keying on adjacent or surrounding structures. If you can do a survey of the block and show sizes, you may be able to persuade.
Of the block, staff has already done that. And the largest is 660 feet. So if you're saying we can't look at the district, I mean, what's the point? I mean, I have $350,000 wrapped up in this.
I think you can absolutely look beyond this block. We did that very quickly to kind of get an assessment of what was already there. You could absolutely look, a block, a couple of blocks in each direction. We've typically said, when people come in and say, well, I have a 1,100 square foot bungalow over here, but I want an 8,800 square foot garage like the gigantic mansion over on 15th Street, the commission has said those two are not comparable. So we have tended to focus on roughly a block area, because usually houses within a block are similar to each other, and the garages within a block were similar. But we could certainly expand beyond that area to see what other common denominators we see in garage size. And if
Existing
there are,
block plus one block out is sort of the area you're describing.
but we can go beyond that. You can also look at houses that are similar to your house, architecturally similar and same size, to say, look, we've found, a dozen other houses that look just like this house, and hey, all of them have 1,200 square foot garages.
The burden isn't on our staff to provide that information.
We're going to work with you to try to find what will be useful. So I think if you want a decision today and you want the case denied today, the commission can do that, but I think there's an opportunity to continue and provide some additional information.
What about, that's what the site, can you bifurcate them? Can you bifurcate the pieces? I mean, do I get denied on one item?
We just approved.
The other item, you just...
That's why we're taking it separately.
Okay.
So if you get continued, though, you have to have the survey done by next Tuesday.
But I think similarly on the siding on the house itself, it didn't sound to me like the commission was comfortable today approving the smart side on the house. I think there might be an opportunity to gather some additional information for that as well.
I think
if
the
you're
biggest,
okay with a continuance on that one.
since we haven't considered that material, is probably its long-term characteristics. Maybe that'd be something to look at.
And I think
that's what you're
the
mainly
interaction
concerned
of it with the wood siding.
Right.
The
Because
existing
it is,
product, right.
right.
Even though you couldn't tell the difference, but we needed some information showing that.
I'm sorry, you're saying that in a month we should consider information in regards to this particular material and be able to use it to approve on a main body?
Possibly. Up to them.
And that's my question. What would the commission or staff need if materials are due Tuesday? That doesn't seem
That's what my
feasible.
point was. It'd be hard. It would probably continue until...
Well, we could also, continue it to the January 4th meeting and have more time.
It's not like the house is going anywhere, but unfortunately.
I think I'd just like a vote then.
Okay. So somebody want to take one then?
So can I understand as well, so your proposal would be that I tear off the siding and then I tear down the garage? Is that your proposal? What's your proposal?
We're not proposing anything.
Well, I mean,
We're-
what rectifies or satisfies you? I'm just trying to understand.
I'm making a motion to continue to give you the opportunity to present more evidence of size of garages in the area. So maybe we can compromise. Mr. Box is saying that it says district, then let's go out and 4 or 5 blocks, come back and show that this type of house, we found other houses. I mean, that's what we've required other people to do when we come down to. If you were standing here with a plan, we would say it would be our suggestion that you bring us more material to prove that, there's larger garages.
We really would like that because we get a lot of requests for large garages, so we can't just, we need...
Right, so that would be on the garage. On the siding, I mean, if personally, I don't think, I'm not for approving the siding on the house. Maybe we could compromise on...
Well, I had one
sides or
idea,
something
possible
like that.
compromise, because the one guideline that I kept citing talks about the sides and the rear. If the front was replaced
That's
with
what I'm saying.
wood, for instance, a compromise with the sides and the back, maybe we allow it. But that's just me talking. That's something you might want to propose with more information on the material and the profile.
If y'all, I would do that.
But
And,
something...
listen, I'm not threatening anything at all. I'm trying to get this house to market because I have a lot of money wrapped up in it. It's beautiful. So I know the job that y'all have, it's difficult for me at times to appreciate the job that you have because I'm singular focused on what I'm trying to accomplish. This is a beautiful home. You can't tell whether it's siding or whether it is smart trim.
And I totally understand that. I don't.
For me to wait another 3 months, I would rather just get to the court.
I see where you're going.
But it's setting a precedent for us in this situation.
But things evolve.
Unfortunately.
You haven't changed this plan since 2012. Things evolve in the building industry, so if new product comes on board, you can't ask developers
I think you still have to
wait.
go back to, when the original material is available, it's hard to substitute another material that's not historic.
But if he's willing to redo everything on the front, I mean, what would the commission need to get comfortable? That, I think, is his rub. How can he make a business decision without some sort of feeling what it would take to actually get comfortable? I mean, we do have to deal with the citation. We can't just continue it indefinitely so that a study group could be assembled to make the commission comfortable. So what, if he's willing to do the front,
Everything above that pitch was replaced. So above the eave, that wasn't covered, so it was damaged by rain and everything else.
The rest of it's all wood?
Stucco's original, yeah.
I was looking for that percentage. It's in there somewhere. So the south, it's 40%.
Does somebody have something, a compromise that they feel comfortable with? Making a motion?
In my view, 3.14 and 3.1.16 control, and those are have mandatory language, not permissive. I can't get beyond those two regulations.
Suzanne?
3 point what? Which one?
3.1.4 and 3.1.16.
Neela?
4 and 6 are the controlling for you. 1.6.
3.1.4 and 3.1.16.
They both say shall, whereas 3.1.34 said may be appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you have anybody that wants to make a motion to compromise.
I love it when we get down to the meaning of the word shall or may.
Well, 3.1.34 would seem to have some purpose. We generally don't think that bodies put things in law unless there is a purpose for it. And I do think it would allow the substitute materials, leaving aside the discussion about which substitute material, on these elevations that are on the rear and on the sides. Otherwise, it has no function. And it was written pretty specifically, actually, if we read all of it, says it applies to every district except Heritage Hills. That means some kind of thought was put into this provision here as a possible way of dealing with the other districts. And this is Mesta Park, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Before you say that, yeah.
Yeah. So if we say 0.4 and 0.6, I believe it was, I can't remember the numbers at this point, but if those are controlling, then what does that do with 3.1.34?
Exactly. It's contradictory.
That's why they're
guidelines. 3.1.34 because
you can pick and choose what you want to make your case. That's, with all due respect to my colleague, that's why guidelines are in place for design districts. That's, if you, every design district that I appear before, this is similar discussion.
I keep going back to 3.1.4 and 0.16 where it says shall be. 3.1.34 says it may be.
Right.
So I'm kind of, Ann's kind of brought this up, that those are directives. You shall do this. You may be able to do this.
So why would we have
I think 3.1.4 and 3.1.16.
So why do we have 3.4? Why do we have 34 then?
When would you use that?
Yeah.
If it didn't have a purpose, they wouldn't have put it into the guidelines. So although
So that's when I would suppose the commission, as a body, could look at any extenuating circumstances, the location of the project, the visibility, to determine whether or not
That's when I think
would be
that,
appropriate.
if it was another material, if it was a hard-to-find material, if it was a brick that you couldn't find to match, there's other materials where it's hard to find to match. So, maybe you want, or if you wanted to do it.
But 3.4 was specifically talking about fiber cement products, not
This
other
isn't a
things.
fiber cement product.
I know, but we're just going to talk about this being a substitute for it. Take out that consideration. It's not talking about other things. It's talking about one particular material, alternate material. So if we don't want to consider it, we ought to get rid of it.
I think that 3.1.34 to me establishes the concept that in not readily visible locations, it may be appropriate to use something other than wood siding. And it is talking specifically about wood siding. And I understand your point about that wood siding is readily available. But I think we've established that to some extent, in some locations, it's acceptable to use something other than wood siding. Up until today, the Commission has not considered anything other than fiber cement, and we haven't evaluated the effect of intermingling SmartSide with wood siding. So I think that if the applicant was interested in a continuance, if we gather more information about that comparison between intermixing SmartSide with wood as opposed to fiber cement with wood to support using it in minimally visible location, and then with your evaluating replacing what's on the front of the building with wood siding, that might be information worth preparing and worth considering rather than just an outright denial.
Do you believe that that information would be available? I mean, do you believe that if we don't want to continue for the sake of just continuing?
I would think that any experienced contractor who's worked with SmartSide or business that is distributing SmartSide is going to be able to answer questions pretty quickly about how does this work if I put it next to my wood siding. If they're marketing it as a product to be used patchwork with existing siding, I would think they would have that information available.
And I guess my question would be, let's assume that we come back and we have positive conversations with people that are in the industry. Is there a comfort level from what my client's willing to do? Replace everything on the front and keep it on the back?
I would, as you can probably tell, I feel kind of comfortable because of that one clause, but you have to convince everybody.
Oh, and I
so
understand.
You can't, it's like taking a vote, you're not going to know.
I'm not good at math. I went to law school.
Making a motion on compromise, or, I mean, I can get a feel for the room and I can make a motion for denying, and we can see if anybody's interested in going forward. So I don't know what else to do.
Would you rather take a continuance or have Joe make a motion to deny and see what happens?
I would propose replacing above the eave, the siding that's there.
On the front, everything on the front that was replaced.
That's above the roof, the porch roof.
Right.
Yeah, that's stuff that.
But that's everything.
Everything below was wood, is still wood.
So everything that was replaced on the front.
Correct.
Okay.
And replacing the garage door, which is metal, which I know that is a no-no.
Oh, you're going to miss it.
That's what I would propose. And it's beautiful. If your goal is to restore historic neighborhoods, this does it. This thing was falling down. We took a house that was empty, and it's beautiful.
We don't deny that. It does look very nice. So, would you rather have a...
I would rather have a vote so I can move on. It doesn't sound like you're going to be able to get comfortable from what I'm hearing. Ms. Meacham, I don't...
I haven't heard anybody that wants to make a motion for the compromise.
Well, and I think it may be more so on, I think the Commission's happy to continue it if that's what the applicant wants to pursue.
Well, I don't want to do it for the sake of doing it. If there really is opportunity to get approval on the whole thing, then I'm happy to do that. But for me to come back in whatever month, and then it's
hard to say, but there are some unanswered questions that people have had, that you might be able to answer, including the constructability of the material plus the sizing of the garage. That might help. It's hard to say what you come back with, but I would say we've got an open mind to...
I'm not going to make a motion on the same day that I made a motion to approve something to limit it to accessory buildings. I will not make that motion.
Yeah. Understand.
We can't answer today what we may or may not approve in the future because we don't have the additional information materials before us to consider.
You bet. I just mean, is your mind made up? That's what I mean.
All he's trying to figure out if we continue it, because we don't want to waste your time. We understand you're all volunteers. We don't want to come back and spend another hour hashing this out. Even if we come back with favorable results that everybody loves this material, there's no failure, it's great, is his compromise something that the commission would be willing to hear? And I understand it's probably a strange request for me to ask that. I don't think it's that strange. I ask it of Planning Commission and every other group that I stand right here at this podium to ask. I don't think it's fair for my client to spend additional time, effort, money, and your time to just come back. If the answer is wonderful results, I still can't get behind the smart siding product on the side and rear, then I don't know why he would continue it. And I think it's a reasonable request.
Well, I would say that we consider every proposal that's brought before the commission. But again, until we hear additional information, review additional information, whatever, I can't give you an answer to that question today without seeing what additional information you may bring forth.
Would you go see the house?
Well,
I mean, if the goal is what its appearance and its reveal, dimensions, if that's your
In my opinion, it's in this particular situation, it's actually about the material, and so seeing it would not make it would not.
But you've agreed that the material's okay because you're willing to do it on accessory buildings. So you've agreed that it's...
We've said on new construction. What we're talking about here is a historic building, and so part of this is you want us to approve something with unique circumstances. We want to be very precise in the unique circumstances we give you because, as has been said, and our concern is that other people will see how we vote on your particular case and say, it's okay if I do X, Y, and Z without a CA because they're going to approve it. So we need to be precise, and for us to do that, we need specific documentation from you.
So in that documentation is favorable documentation from the company, from contractors, from whom? That's as Catherine just gave you all the favorable documentation.
And I do not need any additional information for this particular situation. I don't believe that it has been applied appropriately. If you were here prior to asking to use this, I know that we would all say no. So they are difficult when it's already been done, but I feel like 100% that we would deny the use of that material today if we were looking at an application versus an already completed project.
I don't know if I would have
That's my answer.
if we had approved this for the garage project. Personally, this is not for a complete replacement. This is for replacement, for repair of deteriorated.
But we're limited to where we can...
And you're limited.
If the application would have read the entire back of the house is missing, and even then, I don't really understand in this case why we wouldn't have said, and you can't go to the lumber yard and buy wood. That is the part I have a problem with. It's a readily available material.
That's true, but
Yeah, but there may be better materials.
I don't know. It's
right.
It sounds like you've got all
vote.
opinions on here.
Let's
so-
vote.
Okay.
She's not going to get past that.
Yeah,
I'm just one person.
Well, and she's one person. I think
No,
you've had several other commission members say they'd be happy
I
to
may be the
consider
most
information.
outspoken person,
Yeah,
but I'm
exactly.
still one person.
I think that, as we work with applicants all the time evaluating products that have not been addressed by the guidelines, whether it's a siding material, whether it's metal shingles that are supposed to look like they're wood, as staff, we do this frequently, and we work with applicants to find the documentation about what it's going to look like, how is it going to function, how is it going to interact with the historic fabric that it butts up against. I don't think that that's an unreasonable request for an applicant to submit, and I don't think it's at all unusual for the commission to take that into consideration. Today, like we've said, it's odd that today is the first day that we've started to say maybe SmartSide's an okay product to use, so I think it puts us in an unusual situation. But I do think there's an opportunity there to further document and further attempt to justify some uses of some alternative materials in those locations.
So,
I mean, did you ask for a vote?
So to be clear, you do not want a continuance?
No.
okay, so you want to,
I'm going to make this is for item 1 only. I make a motion to deny item 1, HPCA 1600161.
item 1.
Second.
Do you want the specific findings that were used by the staff in it suggesting a continuance?
So, as proposed, your motion is as proposed? Yeah. Okay.
With the specific findings listed in the staff report, or do you have some other findings?
Turn your microphone.
Specific findings listed in the staff report for item 1.
Okay, it's been moved by Joe Meach and seconded by Ann Zackwitz. All in favor of denying the item as proposed?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed in denying?
No.
1. 2. Okay? As proposed. Okay?
Was that with or without prejudice?
Oh, yeah.
Is that with or without prejudice?
I would say without first.
I would think without.
Without.
Yeah, it could come back at any time with revisions or new information.
So it's 1, 2, what's the vote?
Was it 4-3 to deny?
Who voted nay, to vote to not?
To deny.
Who voted against the motion?
Who voted against the motion?
Raise your hands.
Susanna George.
2.
2, okay.
And for the motion, there were 4?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Can't do math today either. Okay, so that's been denied without prejudice, so it means you can come back and more information.
Okay, that leaves the garage.
Okay.
Did you all want to continue the garage?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to continue?
I don't think so.
You want another motion? Okay. You going to go on that one too?
Rita, it's de novo, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I would much prefer to give you a or to make a motion for a continuance.
On the denying without prejudice, they can come back. What's the rule for
They
coming
can
back?
make another application within a year.
Yep.
Okay, just a complete.
They could reapply at any time.
Complete application. Okay.
The de novo review, Mr. Box, is in district court, but before the Board of Adjustment, they do have an ability to look at what this body looked at. They will review it again. They will have the de novo review, but they will be looking at this information.
But it is de novo.
That is what I recall.
Okay. And that's, I
But
knew
they
they
will
changed
see
that
all of
recently,
this.
but I wanted to make sure this was like all the other districts in that it is a de novo review at the Board of Adjustment, is my
As
understanding.
far as I recall,
Okay.
I've not been before that body in a while, but they will see all of this information.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll see it, but it's de
Okay.
novo.
Rita, could you explain that to the commission?
De novo review means that they are looking at it for the first time, as though a decision had never been made about anything before. The difference in this instance is that they will have this record. They'll have the DVD of these proceedings. They'll have the staff reports. They'll have any information that was presented by the applicant for this case. But having all of that, they will make a fresh decision, even though technically it will be on the agenda as an appeal. It will say an appeal from a decision of Historic Preservation Commission, but they will look at it with fresh eyes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, item.
I was saying that I would rather make a motion for a continuance on the garage.
If you would like, or do you want a motion?
He's saying no. I mean,
to decide. And I have a feeling it's going to be.
I think that what the commission is getting at, and everyone can correct me if I am completely wrong, is that it's important for the commission to make an approval with a good basis for that approval and a good reason to justify it so that every application that comes in after you continues to build on that basis of the way that they make their decisions. And if they can establish a basis to approve any or all of what you've applied for, I think the commission would much rather work with you and find a way to an approval of some sort than see your case denied and appealed. Because I think that's just better for the way the commission functions and the way the district functions. But we certainly understand, I understand you have concerns beyond that and timeframes to work within and that sort of thing.
Mr. Box would have to advise you, but in a real estate sense, if you were to continue the garage, you could possibly market your property and then duly note on your property disclosure what the situation is so that you could begin marketing your property. And that would be a legal opinion on what would be the best. But at least you're not entering into one of the slower seasons of real estate but not doing anything.
Thank you.
Also, this section of the code says the appeal shall be heard and tried de novo by the Board of Adjustment. The appeal will be limited to the issues and evidence presented to and decided by the commission and the grounds specified in the notice of appeal. Oh, and also the board shall use the same standards and criteria of review as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance. And the board, of course, may affirm, reverse, or modify the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. And there are other provisions that I'm sure Mr. Box will read.
I would continue that for the garage. I'm going to have to put that information together anyway for whatever next. But I'm going to bring back district-wide that information.
So we would continue to probably January then.
December 7th or January 4th?
Well, I would say December, because what's going to happen is I'm going to file an appeal within the next 10 days, and we're going to have these bifurcated things floating out there within the administrative system in Oklahoma City, where we've got an appeal going to the Board of Adjustment on one item, we've got another item that's floating out here that in theory could also get denied, then we'd have to also then go back to the Board of Adjustment on that item.
So you want to decide quickly. That's a lot of...
I mean, you see what I mean? Like if we come back and it's denied, well, now we have two appeals.
Right.
One would have already been heard by the Board of Adjustment, and then we've got this other one. It creates problems because I think the Board of Adjustment, if the idea is there's even a chance that the other one's going to get denied, is not going to want to hear a bifurcated process.
Well, we could, is it possible to reverse our previous and continue it? If you want to do that.
Well, I don't think there's any route to approval.
To deny both or
on that
continue
one.
both would be better for you, right? Deny
On
both? Or approve, you'd love, I know, but...
Yes. I think we can get on the December. How much information would you need by Tuesday to make our December meeting, your December meeting?
On the garage?
Yes.
I think primarily what folks are asking for is a broader survey of the size of surrounding garages. So taking that beyond the blocks around you. And that's all available on County Assessor and then perhaps driving around to kind of verify that what you see.
And that's the footprint, not the overall two-story structure or
Right,
what have you?
that's the footprint of the structures.
Sorry? Well,
The footprint of the structure, not the square footage when it's...
right.
Yeah.
Which is the great irony in this
Yes.
discussion. We could have double the square footage, but smaller footprint. Perhaps what we do is continue the garage to December. We'll get you that information. I will work with Development Services on our appeal of the other item in hopes that we can get that. I'm not sure when the Board of Adjustment is scheduled in December, but perhaps I can get it. Perhaps it's the day after your meeting, but I guess that wouldn't work. So no matter what, we'll be at the January Board of Adjustment. But I'm sure Development Services will allow me to lag then I've got to get with my colleagues' counterparts at the prosecutor's office to ensure that they'll not set me for trial while we continue to work through this process. It's a lot of moving targets.
Continuance.
Take the continue the garage.
I make a motion to continue item 4 of HPCA 1600161 to the December 7th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved by Joe Meacham, second by Ann Zakowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the item has been continued.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, no more sliding discussion. Let's see. Other business.
We have our schedule of meetings and schedule of workshops for 2017 for you all to approve. And we'll get those posted with the city clerk. The main thing to note is that we've again suggested moving the June meeting to the final week in May so that the commission can attend the statewide historic preservation conference. The conference is right here in Oklahoma City, so we should have 100% attendance at every possible moment of the conference.
Why couldn't we have it be an event during the conference? Like everybody can come here? And...
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We can get refreshments and host.
Yeah, but a lot of people also get a lot of criticism, probably.
That date moves, and then related to that, the deadline for, actually, the deadline stays the same for that meeting, but the July deadline moves because of the 4th of July, I believe.
Okay. Do we need to approve those?
Yes.
Okay. Can we approve them together?
We have them
Workshop.
as separate items. Rita, can they make one motion for the two? Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion on the 2017 schedule of regular meetings?
We're approving the calendar, yes.
Of regular meetings.
Of regular meetings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the regular meeting schedule is approved, and now workshops.
Make a motion to approve the workshop calendar for next year.
Okay.
Second.
And
It'd be in June.
been moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's also been approved. Now to communications and reports. Anything?
Happy to follow up with any questions about administrative approvals or any of the other administrative items listed there.
Withdrawals?
Nothing special to report from our other bodies.
Administrative closures? What's that?
We have within the ordinance the ability to administratively close an application that was submitted but was incomplete, that has never been moved forward on, so that we don't have to track them in our system for months and months on end.
Looks like it's all by the same individual.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. No action there.
No.
City Council, nothing. Board of Adjustments, nothing. Planning Commission, nothing. Municipal Council, ad hoc committee.
Nothing to report right now.
Okay. Municipal Councilor, nothing. Next meeting date, regular scheduled meeting is December 7th, 2016 at 2 p.m. Municipal Building, right here. New applications were received November 1st. New information on projects continue from today's meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, November 8th. The next regular scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 14th, 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. It's listed as p.m.
Oh.
At 420 West Main, Suite 900. That's a little late. Any slipper party?
Yes, come in your jammies.
Any items from commissioners? Any citizens to be heard?
I'm not a commissioner or a citizen, I suppose, but I was going to ask you all a question. As I said, the statewide conference is here in June, and we'd had at least one commission member, if not multiple, suggest that the conference content they had a couple of years ago in Norman that was a all-commission camp, the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions camp for any commission member, was very helpful, and people really enjoyed that, and that it would be nice to have some content devoted to people who serve on historic preservation commissions. SHPO does have a speaker that's going to come in and do that. I'm not sure if it'll be a half day or how long, but it'll be on the Friday of the conference. And they had asked if our commission in particular had any specific content that would be helpful. And they typically talk about, things, I don't remember the name. It wasn't a name I was familiar with. Yeah, someone from out of state. I'll forward it to you. I think it will be formatted like a workshop. It'll be like the camps that we've had before. So they talk about developing ordinances and guidelines, about ethics and running effective meetings and different things like that. So if you have ideas, let me know. Feel free to just email me if you think of something, and I'll send you some more information about
Weren't
that.
we also talking about maybe sponsoring a reception or something?
Yeah,
Thought we talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that we had talked about at the statewide conferences, they frequently have breakfasts or lunches that are for certain categories of attendees. They have a breakfast for architects, they have a lunch for archaeologists, and to do a Historic Preservation Commission lunch or breakfast or something. And it could either be a ticketed event, or it could be everybody pays their own way and we're just going to arrange the location, kind of get a head count as part of the conference registration. Or we can all pitch in and pay for it, but that might be a lot of... We, the City of Oklahoma City Historic Preservation Commission, do not have money to do that. If you as individual commission members would like to donate money, you're free to do that.
If I don't know what the schedule is going to be, I'm trying to remember last year, could we do a cocktail reception if we wanted to, late in the day?
You like...
Why don't you ask David if he could give us a couple of time periods?
Okay.
Or one. There might
Okay.
only be one.
Something interesting at the OMA, Oklahoma Museums Association Conference this year, they had sort of a rotating reception night. They had like 3 or 4 going on at the same time, and you go from one to the other.
Oh.
That's kind of
Yeah.
interesting. You might pass that
Yeah,
on.
okay.
Yeah, maybe we could do kind of a midtown deal.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd make it easy to get.
I can attest that David is actively and frantically working on said preparation. So,
Yeah.
And, we really need to, I think, go all out. And Katie, I really think we can find sponsors, or,
I'll help.
I'd be open to being a sponsor too, but I bet we could find other people if we wanted to, have them in historic.
Well, and I wonder if even some of the neighborhood associations would want to sponsor
Right.
something
I
in
think
part.
there's plenty of money out there
Okay.
to go ask for people to donate or whatever.
I agree.
So
We can do it.
maybe
Well-
we just need to have maybe David needs to have a special committee on fun.
because he's not good at that on his own, right?
Well, if you'll make a...
So that we can coordinate something.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
so
that's
that-
great.
Because, if people come here, we're going to have a bigger crowd, I think, than usual.
Yes.
Because we're going to have a lot of people just from the area, and we're going to be able to have a lot of people.
I think
out.
if-
So, it's just a good time to show off our historic.
I agree, and if they will make a place for us, I think we can agree as a group, committee, we can make it happen. We'll come up with sponsors, we'll do whatever, come up with a venue, we'll do, they don't have to do anything besides put us on the agenda.
Yeah, we just need to be able to be on the agenda so that we can, people can either sign up, buy tickets, or however.
Yeah.
There might be a mini tour of homes in Heritage Hills. We're going to investigate HPI. They might be interested to do that.
Afternoons, they do 3 or 4 events that you can stay for, because the conference is generally over at lunch.
They're usually, people clear out by 3.
There's usually, people stay, usually there's 2 to 4 different activities.
And usually on what they've been doing the last few years is that Preservation Oklahoma has had a mixer on Thursday after the award ceremony. There's usually an opening reception on Wednesday, but that usually wraps up fairly early, so maybe there's room for something after that opening reception because I feel like people do typically go, meet up and go out with friends and stuff after that event. Friday, it feels like most people get out of town, but with it being here, that might not be the case.
Right, that's what's, even Wednesday and Friday,
Yeah.
I think we're more likely to have people, because there'll be a lot of them.
Would you all want to try to do the commission member lunch or breakfast in addition to something? Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, that's kind of different.
I think something that's a smaller group that is specifically people who serve on commissions would be a really neat opportunity.
With some
And maybe
sort of-
that even fits on Friday after the workshop, that you can go to that commission training workshop and then go to a lunch for commission members.
That would be good. That probably
Yeah.
needs to be before or after that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That's all I
Anything
have.
else on that, Katie? Is that it? Okay, no other citizens. There being no further business, we are adjourned. Well, I said now citizens. Did you want to speak? Okay, we're adjourned then.
These are potential future applicants that we're just
Okay.
observing, so.
And they're running scared.